Shalom and welcome. Welcome to Tov, the Jewish news channel. We have with us today Dr. Mor Altshuler, a historian and scholar of mysticism and Kabbalah. And Dr. Altshuler, Mor, if I may, could you tell us a little bit about your research?
Yes, I'm a scholar of Jewish history, Jewish mysticism, Jewish philosophy, and of course, Jewish messianism. I'm not an expert in messianic ideas of Christianity and Islam. However, I do understand, I do go into the depths of I would call it the messianic apocalyptic mind. I know how they think. And the main idea of a messianic mind is that what is a vision could be an apocalyptic vision of the end of days or something like that in any particular religion. For them, it's a historic plan that takes place, that is fulfilled here and now, today, in the present. And this is very typical and very unique to all messianic thinkers. And I believe that going into the depths of the messianism and the apocalyptic vision of Iranian and of the Shia Iranian group, we can understand the present from their perspective and their understanding, how they see our actions, how they see the actions of the West, how they understand their role, their mission in the world, and why they are so, I would say, intensive and so passionate to destroy the state of Israel. And they say it out loud that this is their mission, this is their goal, to destroy the state of Israel and in fact kill all the Jews.
So what is their plan? First of all, what is the source of this apocalypse as they see it? Where does it come from?
Okay, I'll start a little bit with history and allow me to quote here. I'm using a lot the book of my tutor, my teacher and tutor, Professor Joseph Dan. It's called Apocalypse, Then and Now. And I think it's a very relevant, both relevant book and relevant title, because apocalyptic mind or apocalyptic vision does not go away. It interprets the present in light of this vision. So allow me to start only a few words about what is the Shia, because Iran is a state of a Shia rather than Sunni Muslim. Well, Shia is a minority group or minority sect within the Islamic world, and they believe basically that Ali, the son-in-law of Muhammad, was the only legitimate heir of Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, after the death of that prophet. However, Ali did not take the place of Muhammad. And in the year 680, in the Battle of Karbala, now a city in Iraq, the two sons of Ali, Hassan and Hussein, were killed in battle against other Muslim princes. So the dream that the descendants, the grandchildren, the grandsons of Muhammad will be the rulers of the entire Islamic world was in fact defeated in battle. But this is only the beginning, because every year the Shia, okay, so Shia is, as I said, a minority. They are only in Iran, Iraq, and a small group in Lebanon. And every year they commemorate the death of Hassan and Hussein in the Battle of Karbala. And this commemoration day is called Ashura. And what they practically do, they gather together. You can see hundreds of thousands of Shia men weep themselves and cry for the death of their leaders until they bleed. They practically bleed in the streets. This is a very violent ritual that they carry out every year in the holiday of the Ashura
So this is
to commemorate their defeat.
only the Shiites uh, do this. Only the Shiites commemorate the death of Ali in this way. And does
Ali and his sons, yes. And
and what does
it
that
is
mean about
their,
their relations with the rest of the Muslims?
that means that they take an oath to avenge the death of Hussein and Hassan by taking over the Muslim world. They believe that they are the legitimate, I would say, sons of Islam. Their faith is the only true faith within Islam, and it is their holy task to revenge, to take to take over, to take control of the entire Islamic world, and through the Islamic world to take over the world.
Okay, so this is
Now,
Shiites.
yes, this is
So
Shiites, and we have to really understand, because in the Middle East, history is not in the past. History is a very vivid element of life and politics and ideology and life today. When they commemorate the death of Hussein and Hassan, they don't go back like, I would say, the people of Israel, we Jews commemorate we build the Sukkot in order to commemorate how we left Egypt and wandered in the desert. This is a symbolic act. But when it comes to the Shia and their, I would say, urge to control the world, it is something that is working today and shaping their politics. Now, they have a messianic plan or an apocalyptic plan. And with your permission, Ruchi, I would like to specify the 4 stages of this plan and then show how this plan is, in fact, being fulfilled today in the 21st century. Now, the plan is, as I said, 4 stages plan of the Shia apocalypse. The first stage is 12 hidden imams, 12 spiritual leaders will rule the world, but they are hidden. Only the 12 imams, spiritual leader, will emerge to lead the Shia nation.
so we don't know who they are or were.
Okay, Iranians believe that Ayatollah Khomeini, in fact, that took over Iran and committed and acted out and led the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Khomeini is in fact the 12 Imam. So the first stage of their messianic plan has already happened. The hidden Imam, or sometimes called the Mahdi, the Messiah, has already appeared, and he and his successors are leading Iran today. First step already done. The second step, and this I'll read it down because it's very, I would say, surprising. These are Muslims, but they have a crucial, I would say, weight of Jesus, of Isa, the Christian Messiah that helps the Muslims. So let me write it down. Uh,
So
Isa will
Jesus is part of their plan? The second coming
Yes,
of
in the
Jesus?
third stage, yes, Isa or Jesus, the son of Mary, will reappear and he will convert into Islam. He will dramatically break the cross and take the crescent
Crescent.
moon, which is the symbol of Islam, and he will help the Shia Muslims, to rule the world.
So all the Christians will become Muslims.
Muslims, and they will help the Shia rulers to win the world, to conquer the world.
To take over.
Now, very surprisingly, this stage has already taken place because third president of the United States, third Isa, Jesus, have helped the Iranians to take over the Muslim nation, to be dominant in the Muslim nation. The first one was George Bush, who killed Saddam Hussein from Iraq, thus strengthened Iran instead of Iraq. The second president, Barack Obama, himself the son of a Muslim father, Muslim father, who weakened Egypt in a very, very dangerous way. And again, Egypt is traditionally, I would say, a rival of Iran, Sunni Egypt against Shia Iran. Obama practically killed, I would say, killed the regime, secular regime of Mubarak, weakened Egypt, and allowed the second stage of this messianic plan to carry on. And then
Can
the
I interrupt
third
you just for a moment?
yes,
Egypt is Sunni.
yes.
It was taken over by the Muslim Brotherhood for a short period of time after
But
Mubarak was
yes,
toppled.
yes, but altogether, Egypt today is weaker than it was before. So the whole process is, I would say, symbolically and even practically, Iran is stronger while Egypt is weaker.
Okay.
And this is thanks to this Christian Muslim president, Isa, Barack Obama. And then came the third president, Mr. Joe Biden, that has weakened Saudi Arabia. Again, Saudi Arabia is Sunni, Iran is Shia. And President Biden called Saudi Arabia, as he said, a wicked kingdom, and weakened them and didn't protect them against Iranian attacks. So this stage in which Isa, Jesus, reappears as a Muslim warrior and helps the Muslims, helps the Shia to control the entire Islamic nation, is actually taking place now.
In their eyes.
Okay, so
In
yes,
their eyes. But
yes, in
what
right.
about the part about the Christians converting to Islam?
It doesn't have, listen, uh, okay, you don't have to literally take it step by step. Here is a Christian kingdom or a Christian president, and in the case of Barack Obama, it's even more clear because he has some Muslim roots, helping Iran to become the most dominant power in the Middle East.
Okay. So they
And
have a kind
let
of
me assure you, let me,
creative way of uh, molding the reality to fit their apocalyptic plan, even if the
but
details
let
don't
me,
always fit.
yeah, but let me assure you that when they do rule, they will try to convert actual Christians into Islam. Don't be naive. Both in Europe and in the United States, they will try to convert Christians to Islam, and not in a very kind and merciful way.
Okay.
Don't be naive. Don't be naive about it. But in the meantime, it's good enough for them as it is. The United States, the most powerful, I would say, state of Christianity, is helping them to dominate the entire Middle East and go on with the spreading of terrorism all over the world. Now comes the last stage of their apocalyptic vision. And this is the war, the end of days war against Satan, I would say, against Al-Dajjal, the uh, the Mashiach Sheker, the lying Messiah, the false
False
Messiah,
Messiah or even Antichrist.
Antichrist. Yes, in Christian terms, that would be Antichrist, indeed. And this Antichrist, called Al-Dajjal, surprise, surprise, lives in Jerusalem, and the Jews believe in him. In other words, there is no chance, no way the Jews could be converted to Islam and thus save their souls and become, faithful Muslims, and the world will be redeemed.
There's
The
no
Jews are
redemption for the Jews.
no, no redemption for the Jews, no redemption for Jerusalem, other than total destruction of the entire Jewish nation.
In
And if
Israel
you
and
really want,
outside Israel. All Jews,
well,
not Israelis.
listen, I think we understand by now that Israel is the collective Jew, but and Jews are the collective Israel. I mean, you cannot separate. The destiny of the state of Israel is dependent on Jews, and the destiny of Jews all over the world is dependent on the state of Israel. We are one nation, at least in the eyes of our enemies. So it is now their holy task, holy war, their jihad to reach Jerusalem and destroy and simply kill, commit a genocide, whatever you want to call it, of the Jewish people in order to really be victorious, in order to of their apocalyptic plan to really take place and fully fulfill in history. So what Ruchi I'm saying is, in other words, that beyond their practical reasons, their strategic reasons, their um, calculations of political movements and steps and so on, there is this apocalyptic vision in which Israel must be destroyed by them in order for them to win, to religiously, theologically win.
This is a
Theologically win.
difficult concept for the rational Western mind to comprehend. It's very, very
It is.
difficult for people living in the West in the 21st century who may or may not belong to an established religion today to understand and fully comprehend that a billion Muslims in the world are motivated by this apocalyptic vision. They don't take it seriously.
No, they don't, and I doubt if they know it. You know, in the previous generations, there were excellent scholars that learned the Orient, excellent scholars who really went into the depth of the mind of Islam as a religion and as a culture and learned it and realized it and knew all the nuances and so on. But since Edward Said, there is Orientalism in which Western scholars simply whip themselves, like the Shia groups in the day of the Ashura. They just whip themselves to blood with shame and shamefulness. And what did we do to these poor Arabs? What did we do to these
So,
poor Muslims?
so
And they don't know.
Edward Said and his Orientalism were basically the forerunners of this, what we call today woke progressivism, where the weak or the backward or the less advanced are automatically the victim, and the victim is always right.
And I think Edward Said and his friends were also the end of scholarship, of deep intellectual scholarship, of knowing, of learning texts, analyzing them, as Professor Dan has done, and I'll show his book again, because he's quoting here the best scholars of the Muslim world, both Jews and not Jews, both Israelis and not Israelis. This is scholarship. When you learn, when you seriously take the culture of others and you go into the depth of the text and you really learn them, then you can understand the world
And how
better.
is Orientalism a la Said different?
It's a lot of bullshit. It's a lot of lies and half lies, and its main purpose is not to learn, but to fill the West with feelings of shame. We are guilty of feelings of guilt. We are guilty towards the Muslims, therefore they are entitled to do everything and anything to us. Unfortunately, Israeli scholars have followed Edward Said, and I don't hear Israeli scholars nowadays from Israeli universities saying what I have just said. Simple fact about Shia, about religion, about their apocalyptic vision. All all they say, these postmodern scholars, is how Israel is to be blamed for the suffering of the Palestinians. But Ruchi, don't drag me to this criticism,
Politics.
because I won't end it. It
Okay.
doesn't end there. It
So
doesn't
we're at
end
the
there.
fourth stage. We're at the fourth stage of the apocalypse of Islam.
Yes. Of Shia Islam. Yes.
Shia Islam. So may I ask you, I mean, I know you're not a scholar of Islam per se, but why is the Muslim Brotherhood cooperating with this apocalypse if they're not Shiites?
Because Iran is strong, because Iran is today, as Barack Obama wanted it to be, the dominant power in the Middle East. They are stronger than Egypt and Saudi Arabia and so on. And because they have their terrorism as a task all over the Middle East, they want to spread their terrorism, and it is very convenient. In fact, it is, I would say, even a glad situation, a happy situation for them to have such a powerful sponsor like Iran. And Iran was never attacked by any Western army. And I repeat it, the only army that ever attacked Iran was the Iraqi army, and it was destroyed by the American President Bush. So Iran is perceived as very strong, in fact, victorious. Iran is not a loser. Why wouldn't they join, the winner of this time, of this 21st century? What other
Power
choice do they
talks.
have?
Power talks. It's because
Power
of the power.
talks, yes,
So
and
that's
winning talks. And the fact that everybody is so afraid of Iran and Americans don't dare to attack it, make it even, I mean, I understand them. They join the winners.
so what happens? What happens now?
Okay, you wanted to say what happens next? I
Yeah.
believe that the West is, how would I say, in a very painful process of sober up. Sooner or later, American presidents will understand that Iran is not just a threat to the Middle East. It is a threat to Europe. It's already a threat to Europe with Russia and the war in the Ukraine. It's already a threat to Europe. And Iran is a threat also to the United States, with Russia together and China, a threat to the United States. There are already Iranian bases in South and Central America, already working against the United States. And as you probably know, Iran and Hezbollah are number one in the world in producing drugs. And these drugs are being sold and smuggled through the southern border to the United States. So Americans will wake up, Europeans will wake up and understand that unless they want the Iranians and the Russians on their doorstep, the war against this vicious entity called Iran should start here and now. This is my hope. This
But
is my
what will
hope.
make them wake up? They had 9/11. And one of the first things President Bush said after 9/11 was that Islam is a religion of peace. I remember that very clearly. And he drew the opposite conclusion from what happened. He went to
And then
war,
came Obama.
and eventually they killed Osama bin Laden and Afghanistan and all that. But have they really drawn the conclusions? What will be
No.
needed? I mean, even Israel needed this terrible, horrific massacre on October 7th to wake up. And I'm not sure we've completely woken up either. Not everyone. What will it take for Europe and America to really wake up?
Listen, as a private joke, I called President Bush and Obama, and then President Obama, I called them the sin and the punishment. The sin
I
and the
did too.
punishment.
I actually I said it was Trump and Obama, but I mean Obama and Trump. That Obama was the sin and Trump was the punishment. But yes,
So go back to Bush, not Bush the father, but Bush the
Bush
son.
the son.
Bush the father was a very, very intelligent, very, very smart president, but his son was a disaster. And listen, I don't know. This is why we're doing this, podcast. This is why I think scholars should talk and talk loud. You just told me before the interview that you're now translating another article by Professor Ephraim
Harari.
Harari. Scholars should talk. Scholars should, speak out loud, say their historic knowledge, and let the intellectual arena completely change from the charlatans that talk politically correct instead of facts and historical facts and knowledge, to scholars who really know, who investigate, who read the text and analyze them. because nowadays the
It's very
university.
frightening. It's very frightening. I mean, I understand, of course, what you're saying, but from what we see in the finest universities in America and in England, I mean, their first response after the massacre, before Israel even had a chance to realize what had happened and to respond, their first response was to condemn Israel for the massacre. I mean, American universities have become hotbeds of progressive wokeism. People are afraid to speak up. They're afraid they won't get tenure, they won't get appointments if they speak their minds. And I don't see any hope in the academic world.
Listen, whenever we think that everything is lost, something happens. I believe that it starts with Jewish intellectuals, with honest, non-Jewish intellectuals that suddenly say the truth. And it will continue with more popular waves of people just not voting parties that are pro-Hamas, pro-death, pro-apocalyptic visions of death and destruction. People will eventually wake up. Allow me to remind you that it took a long time to wake up and understand that Hitler was a danger to the world. And me to remind you that until the Americans, Churchill was crying out for help. And President Roosevelt said, we are neutral. And it was just until the Americans were attacked in Pearl Harbor and lost half their Air Force there, that Americans woke up and understood that they must fight evil. And they fought then in both frontiers, both in Europe against Hitler and in the Pacific against Japan. So it takes time for people to wake up. People don't love to admit that they were wrong. That's very human. But it will eventually, I mean, the truth will prevail. Is that what you say in English? The truth
That's what we
will
say in
prevail.
English. But what about in Europe, for example, the demographics look very, very bad.
And
50%
I
of the
think that,
children, at least 50% of all children born in Europe are Muslim today. Not only did they import Muslims en masse, but they stopped having children on their own. This has been going on already for 30, 40 years in Europe and in the United States now too. The birth rate is very, very low, and the Muslims are growing. And as we heard from other people, this is what the Muslims call the quiet jihad, the jihad of the Arab woman's womb.
as Arafat said, in his time, he said that we Palestinians will win through the womb of the Palestinian woman. I don't know what will happen with them. I think that as an historian, I know how they fought against the Islamic empire of Turkey, the Ottoman Empire in Turkey that expanded through Europe and almost reached Rome. Rome, the
Yeah,
capital of the Catholic world.
that's a forgotten
How will they?
chapter. That's a forgotten chapter in European history.
Yes, well, this is the punishment of everyone who forgets his own history. I
Well,
know
as they
that
say,
maybe,
he who forgets history is doomed to repeat it.
repeat it. Will the Europeans, be able to redeem themselves, to stop these attacks, this quiet jihad that will soon be a very violent jihad? It cannot be any other than a violent jihad. It cannot be silent for a long time. Will they be able to help themselves, to wake up, to do what they need to do? I don't know. And in fact, I couldn't care less about this Christian world, although I really, Christianity for me as a Jew is a very problematic, I would say, we have a very problematic relationship, at least in the last century. However, we do need the Europeans to wake up, and they need us to give them the example of standing and fighting back. So has just begun. And Ruchi, we are going to live in very interesting times. And as I
Well,
understand, the Chinese
yes,
have
we
a
are
saying,
indeed. The Chinese curse of living in interesting times, that's been going on for quite a while here in this part of the world. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Moore Altschuler, for your insightful, although not always optimistic remarks. I will try to hold on to the more optimistic parts of what you said. And thank you very much. And thank you to our viewers.
I would like for a minute just to repeat what I said.
Yes?
Everything starts with learning, not quoting the political correct views of some charlatans. Go and learn. My granddaughter learns Arabic. She wants to read it in the original, and she also learns Hebrew to read our Bible in the original. Go and learn. There is no substitution to learning and knowing.
It's not going to be on
That's what
TikTok.
I mean.
They're not going to learn it from TikTok.
No, no, they don't. Thank you,
Thank
Wolfie.
you
Thank you
very,
very
very
much. And
much.
thank you. We'll see you in better days.
And thank you to our viewers. And don't forget to like all our channels on WhatsApp, Telegram, and so on.